Hello, everyone. We're live from Santa Fe, New Mexico. My name is Scott Harrison, and I am the artistic director of Ironweed Productions. We're a theater company based in Santa Fe, and our mission is telling stories rooted in the American experience. Following a great first conversation last week with Leslie Harold Dillon, I want to welcome you to our second segment of Talking Theater Live, Conversations with Santa Fe Theater Artists. Oh, hi, Marion Castleberry just joined in from Baylor. Oh, hi, Tracy. So we're seeing people joining in now. Thanks so much for joining us. I am honored and delighted to have as my guest this evening Santa Fe director, producer, actor, writer, and teacher, Robert Beny Benedetti. Beny, just thanks so much for joining me. I'm really
my pleasure, Scott.
Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah.
For those of you who have not, you're joining us for the first time, just a little bit about this this program. Talking Theater Live is a series of 15 to 20 minute conversations between myself and Santa Fe theater writers, directors, actors, producers, designers, dramaturges, and stage managers. Oh, my mom just joined in. Hi, Mom. And they're sharing their stories about their experiences in Santa Fe, or experiences in the theater, and just the paths that they've taken to creating theater in Santa Fe. So we are coming from Beny's wonderful home here in Santa Fe. And I also just want to mention as well, Beny is the founder and artistic director of the New Mexico Actors Lab, which just finished your second very successful season with productions of The Glass Menagerie, Quality of Life, and Heisenberg. And Beny, I just wanted to start off just with a first question. We're here in your lovely home. Everyone can see the Vigas behind us. What brought you to Santa Fe?
Well, when my wife and I both retired, she before me, we decided to move out of Los Angeles. It had just gotten too congested and too difficult. We were living in Santa Monica near the beach, and we were practically captive in our house on the weekends by the crowds. And also our house had appreciated in value a great deal, so we knew we had a good bit of money. We had been in Santa Fe many times over a 20-year span. I used to run Ted Danson's production company, and Ted had a long history with Santa Fe. He had quite a bit of property here, and I had stayed in his places, and he grew up in Flagstaff, so he knew the area well. And we both knew that we liked it here. Our daughter, Kirsten, had moved to the Corrales area, which is only 45 minutes away, about 15 years ago, and she was eager for us to come here. And I had a number of ex-students and other people that I knew, and there's oodles and oodles of ex-movie and film people here, as you know. So it just seemed like a natural fit.
Wow. And did you see when you came here that you were wanting to produce theater, or was that something that you had in your mind when you moved here?
Well, people don't realize this, but there is a long history of professional, that is to say equity, theater here in Santa Fe. There was a group called Santa Fe Stages, and there was another group called the New Mexico Rep, which had long lives, one of them 10 years, as equity companies. They had both been started and run by ex-students of mine, Andrew Shea and Martin Platt. Had another ex-student here named Steve Schwartz, who started what turned into the Santa Fe Shakespeare Company. So I came here kind of expecting to find more theater than I did. And I found a lot of theater people, but not a lot of theater going on. And I think it's true to this day that theater is a little bit of a poor sister in Santa Fe. Although I think that's improving enormously. We're undergoing a kind of renaissance. Quality is improving enormously, and I think that the outlook is really positive. So knowing that I wanted to do live theater, because I hadn't done any theater for 15 years when I had taken over Ted's production company. I was a movie producer for 15 years and didn't do any theater at all. So I wanted to get back to it. And it just seemed like the best way to do that was to start my own small company. I made it very small on purpose. I kept it in a repertory format, which I very much believe in which we do 3 plays back to back in a limited period of time with what is sort of a resident company of actors that I am committed to, and I try to pick the plays that'll fit that group of actors. Because back in the 50s, when we really believed there was going to be a renaissance of American theater, it was going to happen, we hoped, along the, oh good, this is all black magic to me, this stuff here. We really believed that it would happen along the lines of the regional resident repertory theaters in Europe. That's the way the Guthrie started, and the Alliance Theater, and Denver Center Theater, and the Dallas Theater Center, the Mummers Theater in Oklahoma City. In the 50s and 60s, there were a number of resident theater companies started. One by one, they've all, with the exception of a few that I just named, fallen by the wayside. It turned out to not be an economically viable format for theater, because what we forgot back in the 50s was that all of those wonderful resident theater companies in Europe received very heavy governmental subsidies, which in our case we have not got. And not having them, it proved to be a model that didn't work for us. But I still believe that in principle, I think actors grow and develop much more rapidly when they're doing a variety of roles in a repertory situation. And we've tried to create that model here in Santa Fe. And it's been pretty successful, I'm happy to say.
Yeah, I agree. And do you, in terms of the material that you pick, or the material that you're drawn to as a producer or a director, are there particular? I'm just going to invite a couple people that are joining in here. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is kind of a fun part of the experience as well. Are there particular things about a piece that draws you, that says that this is something that I want to direct or I want to produce?
Yes, and it was the same kind of material that when I went into movie producing, Ted Danson and I agreed that we really wanted to pursue material that dealt with issues of social justice, first and foremost. We were lucky we didn't have to worry about the commerciality of the material we did. Ted was making plenty of money from Cheers. And we were able to, specifically, I was drawn to stories in which someone that we care about is facing an extremely difficult choice in which there is no best, there's only bad and less bad. I think that's essential to the spirit of drama. You can even find a version of that in Aristotle's Poetics as the moral dimension and ethical dimension of drama. And I know that I do my best work as a director, as an actor, and as a producer. When I feel motivated, feel connected to a cause for which we are fighting through the means of our theater making, I don't think theater is at its best as an end unto itself. I believe in it as a means to achieve betterment of society, to make people more loving and responsible and open to one another.
Right. Oh, that's great. Just a tiny bit of history for between Benny and myself for folks out there. Let me just invite a couple more people. Thanks everyone for joining us live here. There we go. Hi Jeff Lang. So just a little bit of history to share. So Benny, I knew about you about 25 years before we actually met, which is we met about 7 years ago. I was a sophomore at James Madison University. I just discovered an interest in theater the year before. I just stumbled on an intro to a theater class that I loved and was completely taken with. And I was in one of my first acting classes with your good friend, Tom Arthur. And I distinctly remember this day. This was 1985. Tom came in one day and he said, well, I'm not going to be here next week. You're going to have a substitute. He said, I'm going out to California to visit my good friend, Robert Benedetti. And he just talked just about how much he meant to you as a friend. You mean to him as a friend, as an artist. And so he went out there, and when he came back, we all wondered, well, how was the trip? And anyway, one of the things that he told us about was that he went to a taping of Cheers.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and I just never forgot. He was so thrilled by. He said that so many of those actors on that show were just pros, and just a lot of them had just been doing theater for years, and just for him, just what a treat that was to see those actors work. So anyway, it's just kind of, if he would have said then, Scott, 32 years from now, you're going to be sitting in Rob Benedetti's home having a conversation about theater, I would have thought, well, how does that all come about?
Tom Arthur introduced my wife and I to one another in Bloomington, Indiana, when I was in a graduate company there, and he was the best man at my wedding. So we do go back a long way. And that group in Cheers was really extraordinary. There was John Mahoney from Steppenwolf, David Hyde Pierce, Ted, of course, and Woody Harrelson, and
right.
It was such and I got to be really a part of that group. We'd have dinner together on Tuesday nights before the taping, and those were wonderful, wonderful years, and I learned a great deal. I went into it without much knowledge about film and television, and I came out really converted to the quality of work that it is possible to do for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, the camera is more demanding, if you're serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
The camera is more demanding than a live audience, because you cannot lie to it. The level of scrutiny that the camera exposes you to will spot the fakery a mile away. So I came out converted to the purity of good film acting. And again, I stress that you have to be serious about it, because there's a lot of crap, and you can get away with a lot of crap. But the camera really sees who you are. And so the tiny theater that we work in here in Santa Fe, which has only 56 seats, and the audience is within 8 or 10 feet of the actors, what we're really doing is filmic acting.
Right.
And that requires a level of self-exposure. You can't hide really who you are. And that makes demands on the actors, and it makes casting really important. And I'm just having the time of my life with it.
Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with you last year in the production of Driving Miss Daisy that you directed.
And you were
And
damn good.
oh,
I'm happy to say.
well, thank you, thank you so much. And one of my favorite things about you as a director is I always felt in the process supported, and I always felt like that you always came at it from a place of I see what you're trying to do, I see what you're doing, where you're trying to go, and either keep going in that direction or here's something that I can help you along to kind of get where you're going and to help us tell the story that we're all trying to tell together. And I just wondered, in terms of, because you're an actor as well, how has your process as a director evolved? Just, I mean, in terms of how you work with different actors.
Well, I wrote a book about directing years ago, and it starts with the statement that directing is the art of correcting the mistakes that you made in casting. And if a person has been properly cast, there isn't much directing needed. But what is needed is, as you say, a kind of facilitation, a kind of supporting the person in being able to risk revealing themselves and going to places that might be uncomfortable for them to go in, but which they have the capacity to go in, and learning to shut up. I mean, I don't do a lot of directing. I don't give very many notes. I do not allow a lot of discussion about the meaning of what we're doing. I would rather put the actor in touch with the material and allow the material to invade the actor, and vice versa. Stanislavski said that every performance is a marriage of actor and role, and I really do believe that, and I believe that the actor has to be allowed to find that version of themselves that suits the needs, that fulfills the needs of the material. Yeah. And if I can assist in that happening, I feel that I've done my job, because I have to judge if what the actor is doing is contributing to what Stanislavski called the reason why the play was written. I mean, the dramatic function of the character is not a person who's wandered in off the street. They are a created element of an artistic whole, and they have a certain job to do within that schema. And the actor's work has to be very personal, but it also has to fulfill the needs of the role in that sense. And that's where I come in as a director, is to make sure that we are headed in the right direction, but being open to the way in which this particular actor is going to achieve that particular task.
Yeah, that's great. As you were talking, it just made me think of, one of, and you were talking earlier too about your work in film, and one of the movies that I still am most touched by, that I didn't know that you had produced until a few years after we had known each other, was A Lesson Before Dying, which was based on a Ernest Gaines novel, which I loved. But I remember when I saw that, I think it was, we saw it on video, so it was 2001 or something like that. But what I was most struck with, aside from just being incredibly moved by the film, was, to me, it almost felt like I was watching a play, because it was so immediate. It was so intimate, and the performances were so deep. And there was also, the ensemble, which was, Don Cheadle, Mekhi Phifer, Cicely Tyson, was so rich. And I wondered if you could just tell me a little bit about what that experience was like.
Well, that and Miss Evers' Boys, which I produced the year before that, were the most satisfying experiences that I had in film and television. And again, they were both projects that were motivated by a strong concern for social justice. And I had an incredible mentor and partner, the director Joe Sargent, who has since passed away. Joe came out of a theater background. He had studied with Piscator at the New School for Social Research back in the 30s, and it was such a delight to work with him because he understood actors, he valued and respected actors, and he was a master of the craft aspects of film and television. Don Cheadle had been a student at Cal Arts when I was dean of the School of Theater there, and I fought for him to get that role. HBO took a little persuading because Don hadn't really carried a film before in the way he carried that film. I think what happened was that between Joe and I and our personal commitment to the sense of justice that motivated the novel, and Ernest Gaines was with us on the set a lot of the time because we shot it in New Orleans, in Houma, Louisiana, and he taught for many years at Baton Rouge. So he was able to come and be on the set with us, and that was such a privilege. But our personal passion for what the piece had to say resonated through the entire structure of the organization, right down to the grips and the caterers, and I mean, the sense of purpose, the sense of being at service was so strong on that set, and I really believe that people do their best work when they feel that they are at service to something more important and bigger than themselves. And that's what that film set was like.
Oh gosh, Well, that definitely that definitely came across in the film because I've just never forgotten that. And I agree. I think there's just, I mean, I feel the same way in terms of directing. I can't direct a story that I don't just feel some incredibly strong connection to in terms of what it's. In terms of what it's saying,
it's just too damn hard.
Right. It's too many hours not to just really care about.
Yeah, you need that level of passion to carry you through all of the compromises and disappointments that will inevitably come your way as a director or a producer.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, Benny, I just had two. If you have time, just for two other questions, I wanted to ask you.
I'll give you quick answers.
The first one I wanted to ask is just, what is your earliest memory as a boy of the kind of the magic of make believe or the magic of storytelling when it first opened itself up to you? Do you?
Well, I've thought about this over the years, and it's not a very early memory. It's in high school. And it is, in fact, the experience that made me decide to go into theater. And that was going to see a production of The Death of a Salesman at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. And sitting back up in that balcony. This was, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and it was a trip that our English class took. And I recognized my father in Willie Loman. And that was such a profound epiphany for me that I realized at the time that, boy, if theater can do this, it is worth devoting your life to it. And so that that was a watershed moment in my life.
Yeah.
Although I started out wanting to be a lighting designer. I went to Northwestern in order to study lighting with Theodore Fuchs, and the way the curriculum was set up, you couldn't take a lighting class until your junior year, so I had 2 years to sort of kill, and I killed them taking acting classes from Elvina Krause. But I still hadn't, there's that way in which when you really look inside and you identify yourself as an actor, that's a terminal identification. That's never going to go away. Yeah. And everybody I know, including Joe Sargent, who had initially identified themselves as actors, even if they went on to become writers or directors or whatever else, there was still the actor. All you had to do was scratch the surface a little.
Yeah. Well, this kind of relates to the story you shared about seeing Death of a Salesman, but you've in your career as an artist, I mean, you've acted, you've directed, produced, written, taught. What is the experience or the experiences now when you're creating theater that those ones that are just like, oh, this is why I love it? I mean, are there just one or two things that just this is why I love it?
Well, when a show is really cooking, really running on its own power, and when that happens, it becomes greater than the sum of its parts. You can feel that everyone is connected and taking pride and joy in the work, and there's a level of camaraderie, familyness that comes out of that is really the reward for me. I don't have much interest in the finished product. I tend not to even watch my own shows a lot. I'm not a very good theater goer because even for other people's work, because what I really enjoy is that process and the human dimensions of the relationships that are formed through the work. You may not end up, liking each other very much. Even it's not the same as a social situation. It really is unique to the cooperative effort of theater making and the power that we all can recognize in the making of theater, which makes us feel for a little bit of time immortal, I think. Yeah. Even though this is a very ephemeral form, it's all going to be a distant memory by next Tuesday. Still, it means more in the making of it than film and television does. Although I must say that the camaraderie on a film set, when the kind of magic that I'm speaking of happens, as it did in A Lesson Before Dying and Miss Evers' Boys, is every bit as satisfying as theater making is. So I'm happy in either form, but there are commercial and technical constraints in the making of film and television that can be pretty daunting. As Orson Welles once said, it is no accident that movies come in cans. But at the same time, it's awfully satisfying to be able to slip that disc into the machine and see the show again and relive the experience of making it. Although I don't do that either.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I can definitely attest to the experience with Driving Miss Daisy of having that feeling of just a greater whole that was achieved with everyone. It was really, really special.
Yes, that was. I remember we all embraced at the last performance and kind of cried,
Yeah.
and we all knew that something very special had happened.
Yeah, yeah. And those, like you said, I mean, those are irreplaceable moments.
Yeah.
Benny, I can't thank you enough for this time. It's just been really special to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you shared, and I want to thank all of you all out there for joining us. We will. Hey Jeff Bender, a friend from way back. It's fun to see folks joining in, and I just want to let everyone know that we will. If you didn't catch all of this, or if you don't catch future ones, we will post this on our Ironweed Productions Facebook page. So please like us and follow us on Facebook. These interviews, we have them about once a week. They won't always happen at the same time or on the same day, but we will announce who and when on our Facebook page. So please like us on Facebook. We do have an interview lined up for next week, and we will announce that here very soon. So, again, Benny, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Really enjoyed this.
I enjoyed it too.
And thank you all so much for joining us. And until next time, good night.
Bye.